You probably can't do better than Jalen Hurts right now. Not probably. You definitely can't do better. Well, you also don't want to pay him $35 million a year. And they don't have to. So they have that luxury right now. But it's coming. It's coming quickly. It is coming quicker than people realize.
He's John McMullen. I would be Jody McDonald. You got a Mac and Mac Birds 365 one-year anniversary show. A year ago today, we got this bad boy underway here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel. We appreciate your streaming on in with us on a daily basis. Right now, we got over 300 people watching, and we thank each and every single one of you. While we've got that big a number, do us a favor. Like, share, and subscribe to the channel, specifically this show. You found us here in year number 1. Make the most of year number 2. We plan on being here for you. We also planned on having Ben Solak here, but we're having some trouble getting Ben punched up here, former Bleeding Green Nation guy who's now doing it for the Ringer these days. If and when we get him up, we will punch him up and we'll get his take on the Birds, where they're at this offseason. The big trade yesterday with the Saints to move out of one of their 3 first-round draft picks this year and add a second draft pick. I did look it up. The Eagles are not the only team as of right now that has 2 first-round draft picks next year. The Seahawks, they traded that Wilson guy, which gave them a second first-round draft pick. The Texans, because they traded that Deshaun Watson guy, have 2 first-round draft picks. The Chiefs, which I'll bank on them being below the Eagles in the draft this next year, even without Tyreek Hill, but they have their own pick, and now the Dolphins' first-round pick. So there are other teams that have 2 first-round draft picks going forward for next year. Where they're going to fall, yeah, we got to play a whole season before we figure that out. But it isn't like the Eagles are on an island by themselves. And oh, by the way, as we sit here right now, and I think there's a chance that at least one of these 2 teams will do something for quarterback this year, which might take them out of the market next year. The Seahawks and the Texans have a more dire need for a quarterback than the Eagles do right now. We can question Jalen Hurts all we want. Who would you rather take your chances with? The Texans quarterback or the Eagles quarterback going forward, Johnny Mac?
That's a good
You a
question.
Davis Mills guy?
I'm more of a Davis Mills guy than most people, but I think it's closer than people think, but I would slightly lean towards Jalen Hurts, but I do think it's closer than people think.
I had John McClain. Little did I know that when I had John McClain on about 3 weeks ago to talk about the Deshaun Watson deal, that it would be the last time I would have John McClain on as the lead writer for the Houston Chronicle. Oh, we're still going to get John McClain on, because John McClain's not going to forget everything that he's learned about football over the last 50 years. Oh, yeah, we're still going to have him on. He just won't be an accredited guy covering the team. But he did say he's put out some stats there that Mills's number is actually the best of any rookie quarterback over the last 4 weeks of the season.
He's better than people think. I'm glad. I'm glad you went that way. I thought John was going to blow me up and say
no, he didn't. Oh, I'm going to blow you up. I don't believe the numbers for a millisecond. No pressure whatsoever. They were already basically eliminated from him, not looking over his shoulder at all. He was handed the job and just said, just go out and have fun with it. I think he's a mediocre quarterback waiting to happen.
Now, a couple things. It's not about numbers for me. You know me, I'm not a numbers guy in general, but I do think he's got some talent, and I do think he's a mediocre quarterback, but I think the Eagles quarterback is a mediocre quarterback. So I'm kind of grading on that scale. I think he's got the potential to be a little bit better. I kind of said with Rick, well, number one, I kind of try to frame things through an Eagles lens, which I tell you all the time. I think he's the type of quarterback Nick would want for this team. Number one, he's a big guy. He's 6'4". He can throw from the pocket. He can do some things as far as moving the ball around, and that's what Nick wants to do. He
Yeah,
wants
see,
to play
maybe
11
I
personnel.
didn't
And
ask the question, John. I don't care how Davis Mills looks in an Eagle system because I don't believe he's coming here. I'm
no,
just asking you who you think is going to be a better quarterback going forward in whatever system they are. Right now, we know Mills is in the Texan system and Hurts is in the Eagles system. So judging them against each other in their own particular systems, who do you think is going to be a better and more successful quarterback?
I think Jalen is better right now, and I think Davis has the potential to be a little bit better long term. But ultimately, I think they're both mediocre quarterbacks.
Fair
Is
enough.
how I would answer that.
I think Jalen is better now, and I think Jalen will be better in the future. That's my evaluation of Davis Mills. He doesn't do much for me anywhere. And oh, by the way, the Seahawks. Drew Lock, big fan.
No,
Compare Drew Lock and
no,
Jalen Hurts.
don't like Drew Lock a little bit. So I don't think he's mediocre, nor does he have the potential to be mediocre. Um, no, and there's nothing wrong with being, I always say Jalen Hurts is a solid NFL starting quarterback. And that's not a criticism. Um, but, because of the explosion of salaries and because of where we are in this industry, you got to make difficult decisions with those types of players. In many ways, that's the most difficult decision of all, because you probably can't do better than Jalen Hurts right now. Not probably, you definitely can't do better. But you also don't want to pay him $35 million a year. And they don't have to. So they have that luxury right now. But it's coming. It's coming quickly. It is coming quicker than people realize. And that's what complicates matters a little bit more and creates a little bit more of a sense of urgency.
That's why I think we debated a little bit on what the Saints are looking to do here this year with the deal with the Eagles to get a second first round pick. I think it's just to improve the football team and get better, not necessarily for a quarterback. The Seahawks might be a team that tries to finagle, and it's had one more move left in them to try and get to a position to take a quarterback this year. Because one thing I've learned about the Seahawks this offseason, they'll bold-faced lie to you. I watched Pete Carroll from the NFL Combine look right in the camera and say, we have no intention of trading Russell Wilson. Look dead in the camera and said it. 10 days later, he was a Denver Bronco. So they say what they have to say. They do what they have to do. John McMullen's favorite phrase, which I borrow all the time, they're not under oath. The Seahawks may say they're not in the market for a quarterback in this upcoming draft. I'll take that with a grain of salt. I do believe that the Saints are looking to do something else other than take a QB. I wouldn't be surprised if the Saints have a real desire to get their hands on either a Malik Willis or a Kenny Pickett, or maybe they're a Matt Corral guy. I know you and I have a different opinion after. If we all accept that Pickett and Malik are probably going to be the first two taken off the board, you kind of like Sam Howell. I kind of like Matt Corral. I think he is certainly the third. I actually think he's the second best quarterback. I think he's going to be better than Malik Willis. For whoever was listening earlier in the show, I did not say Malik Willis was going to be Patrick Mahomes.
You did. It's
out there.
I
didn't.
It's out there in the ether, Jody.
Let me double down again. Yeah. I don't think Malik Willis is going to be Patrick Mahomes. I don't think Malik Willis is going to be Matt Corral at the NFL level, as a matter of fact. So I have him as my second-round quarterback behind Pickett. I think the Seahawks may be in play for a quarterback this year.
They should be. I mean, it's interesting because that's obviously an organization that had a sustained level of success for a long period of time with Russell Wilson, basically until last year. I mean, Russell was the winningest quarterback of all time, for his first 7 seasons, first 8 seasons, they just won a lot of football games over a long period of time, and they took advantage of that window, and now that window's closed. And you're permitted to take a little bit of a step back, and they're doing that right now. And sports is cyclical. I always talk about that. And ultimately, you're going to have to turn things over for everybody. Everybody's leasing, nobody owns in this league. Um, and, it's always a difficult transition, but I find it very hard to believe they're going to line up with Drew Lock as their starting quarterback week 1 of the NFL season. I don't think, and if they do, not that they can't. Obviously, you can. He's played before. He is not going to be, Nathan Peterman, but he's not. He's not a good NFL starting quarterback. And I can't imagine Pete Carroll sitting there and John Snyder sitting there and saying, "Well, let's not try. Let's try. Let's shut down every other avenue." I mean, there's no loyalty to Drew Lock. There's no need to say, "Oh, we can't upset Drew Lock." I mean, you got to try to get better from Drew Lock, don't you? You have to.
I don't see how they don't try and do better, but they haven't to this point. But maybe they really do like someone in the draft class, and maybe they're just trying to get their ducks in a row to be able to pull that off. I do want to ask you one other question, John, because you and I have broached this many times over the last several weeks here on Birds 365. Your sources told you that the Eagles were very interested and actually pretty damn close to trading for Calvin Ridley. That they had extensive conversations with the Falcons, and it seemed like a deal very much could get done, and that the Falcons kind of pulled back from the deal. And we're speculating now they had gotten wind that the NFL was going to take a stance against Mr. Ridley because of the illegal gambling stuff, and he was going to get suspended. No, by the way, that's exactly what happened. Out for the entire year, so it put the kibosh on the Eagles trade. And you give the Eagles whatever credit you think they deserve, because at least they were trying to get another wide receiver. I'm kind of a bottom line guy who says close only counts in horseshoes and hand grenades. Doesn't matter that they were close. They didn't get it done. It wasn't their fault, but they didn't get it done. And I still think they need a veteran wide receiver. One guy that we've kicked around a bunch over the last week or so has been Devontae Parker of the Dolphins, because they went out and got Tyreek Hill, and we assumed Parker was going to be available. He ends up getting dealt for a third-round pick. And oh, by the way, the Dolphins get back, the Patriots also get back a fifth-round pick. So it's not just a flat third. It's a moving up of 2 rounds from a fifth to a third with all the compensation necessary for Devontae Parker. I think that's a stone-cold steal for the Patriots. I couldn't believe the Dolphins made the trade in division. I did see on Florio's site, Pro Football Talk, that there were other teams that were interested, including the Cowboys, including the Texans, including the Falcons, and including the Packers. No mention of the Eagles in there. Do your sources tell you that the Eagles didn't like the player? That they didn't get involved in any conversation about potentially acquiring him after the Tyreek Hill trade was made? That doesn't make any sense to me with the veteran wide receiver need in place here in Philadelphia. Why weren't the Eagles a team that was mentioned? Mike Florio doesn't know everything, but he's pretty damn good. And he went so far as to name 4 teams in addition to the one he got traded to, none of which were the Philadelphia Eagles. Why was that?
Yeah, I don't think they were interested in the player. I see both sides, but I kind of said yesterday, it's a 29-year-old guy. It's, I talk about being disciplined. Sometimes it's good. Mostly it's good. Sometimes it's bad. I said in a vacuum, I have no problem with them passing on this player. The problem is you're not in a vacuum, and they've already missed out on 4 players they would have preferred to have. So sometimes if you plan A doesn't go right, plan B, plan C, plan D, sometimes you got to go to plan E.
Exactly.
He'd be better than what they have. But then you start talking about, okay, if you're down to plan E on the veteran side of it, well, maybe it is better to go on the draft side of it if you don't like the player. I don't think they like the player. I do think, as I said, 29 years old, pretty significant injury history. One 1,000-yard season. He's never really been that explosive. Is he better than Zach Pascal? Yeah, but I'd rather have, if they're going to go the Garrett Wilson, Chris, although Rick just scared the hell out of me by comparing Chris Olave to Kadarius Toney, because the Eagles have shown no ability to take advantage of a player with that type of skill set. So that scares the living hell out of me. But, maybe it's better to go draft than plan E, although I would rather have a veteran presence, but they just don't like the player. So if you don't like the player, you don't like the player.
Right. And that's why I asked you the question. Maybe they don't. I would disagree with their evaluation. I think the player is significantly better than what they have at wide receiver, whose name isn't Devontae Smith. And his 1,000-yard season is more than
it's more than Devontae Smith.
Right. More than any wide receiver on the Eagle roster right now has ever put up. Combine them all, put them together. What's the number? 0.
Well, that's true. But I will say,
Devontae Parker.
I will say, and I have to look at, Devontae's been playing 7 years, eight, whatever. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this will be his 7th year. If Devontae Smith is in his 7th year and he only has one 1,000-yard season, and his best season other than that is 793, I would be extremely disappointed and extremely even more as surprised. But I would be extremely disappointed.
Well, I agree with you. There is another factor you need to bring into that conversation. If you're going to compare the two Devontaes and say 7 years out, what is Devontae Parker scheduled to make this year?
$5.5 million, somewhere in that range.
What do you assume Devontae Smith is going to be making in
he's
year 7 of his contract?
He's going to be making a lot, but he's going to deserve a lot. The question is, are the Eagles going to pay him? Because, they don't seem to want to pay.
That's why I'm making this argument for Devontae Parker. And you painted a pretty good picture here, John. You're selling me. The Eagles don't want to acknowledge and or move the needle along with the rest of the National Football League that wide receivers are now top flight ones. I'm not even talking about Tyreek Hill because he's 25. I'm talking about that next rung down between 15 and 20 million per. If they don't want to jump into that neighborhood yet, Devontae Smith is going to jump in there soon enough. But even if you do you need to address it now, and you don't want to get into that neighborhood. You don't want to play with DK Metcalf. You don't want to play for who's the other wide receiver who's 1 year away from being
AJ Brown.
AJ Brown. You don't want to do that. Okay. Well, you've got Devontae Parker. He's not those two players. You're right. But he's very reasonably priced for the next 2 years. Which is more important, the high-level talent and production end or the affordable end? The Eagles are shying away from both. Shame on them. They need a veteran wide receiver. Gotta get somebody in here. Zach Pat, we're back to Zach again. I feel bad this is all landing on Zach Pascal's shoulders, but he is what he is, and what he is isn't good enough.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, look, I've been talking about this forever, and they haven't gotten it done. And we've mentioned the 4 names time and time again. 2 on the trade market, 2 on the free agent market. They haven't been able to get it done. It's only at that stage, and that, I understand this is a game both on the field and off it that you're defined on results, and the result is they didn't get it done. So I'm not giving them credit. I'm just pointing out they've shown that they understand they need an upgrade at that position. And they've shown it pretty clearly by the number of players they've gone after. So I don't think at that stage, when you're down to at best number 5 on your list, you should push it. And if you don't like the player, you don't like the player. and I get why they don't like the player. So I guess that's not why I don't have as big as a problem. And I've turned towards the draft. I didn't want to turn towards the draft. I don't think it's good that Devontae Smith is going to mentor instead of being mentored. Um, but they didn't get it done. So now you got to go to the next best option. And I think the next best option would be, to me and to them clearly, would be the draft over somebody like Devontae Parker. Now, another name, DK Metcalf or A.J. Brown, now that's a clear upgrade and a clear good player. And then you're getting into the contract parts of it. I don't think they didn't like Devontae Parker because of the contract. I think they didn't like the player. That's it. And once you don't like the player, you don't get into the rest of it.
Understood, but then we'll get to compare what Devontae Parker does in New England with a second-year quarterback, not a third-year quarterback, as compared to whoever the Eagles take in the first round with their pick. I think that player will eventually become, cross your fingers, a better player than Devontae Parker, career, 2-year comp, 4-year comp, 5-year comp, and there's no way Devontae Parker's going to play 5 more years, but you get my point. But I'm just worried about 2022. And yes, I think the Eagles missed out on a major potential, inexpensive in both compensation, which you would have been able to give up for to get the trade. You only had to do slightly better than New England because they would have preferred to trade him out of conference than to trade him to a divisional rival. That's for damn sure. Those other teams, the Cowboys and like that I was just rattling off that Florio said, at least inquired on the player, must not have offered diddly squat for him to be shipped to New England. Shame on them. And I say shame on the Eagles. I think they should have gotten the player. I think they missed out. One other aspect of the deal that kind of, I'm not saying I disagree with it, but it kind of bums me out with the Eagles trading first round pick this year for next year. It takes the whole linebacker conversation completely off the table, doesn't it? Because we do it every single year. Been since 1979. Whose name am I going to quote here, John?
Jerry Robinson.
Jerry Robinson, yeah. The last time the Eagles took a first-round linebacker. I'm a huge Nakobe Dean guy. I think he's going to be a superstar linebacker in this league. I think he's going to be on the board at both 15 and 19 when the Eagles pick, and they're going to pass him twice, and it's going to give McMullen and McDonald fuel for fire for the next decade if we do this Birds 365 show long enough. We got 1 year logged. We got 9 more left in us. We'll see. Yeah, there is no chance, no shot, no way they're taking a linebacker now that they
hey, guess who, I brought up earlier in the show, and the Eagles have 15. The Eagles are 15 and 18 now. So they moved up from 19. They're 18.
Excuse me.
So they have 15 and 18. Jimmy Kempski had him taking Garrett Wilson at 15. 18, he had him taking your guy.
The defensive tackle from UConn. He's with you.
Now he took Nakobe Dean.
Really? Still?
Yeah. And I'm like,
oh, yeah. I hope he's right, but I don't think he's got a prayer of being right.
Yeah, I don't think he's got a prayer of being right, but we'll see. The Eagles are going to introduce Kaiser White to us today at some point, scheduled. We'll see if it shakes out. Well, they didn't pay him a lot. It's not like they can't go in a different direction, and everything comes down to liking a player. And I bring up, people, the Eagles don't like running backs. True, but they would have drafted Christian McCaffrey. They would have. The Eagles don't like safeties. Maybe you'll get to see that this year if Kyle Hamilton does drop. True, but what if Kyle Hamilton drops? There's always one player that can turn things on their heads. I mean, the Eagles don't like drafting receivers in the top 10. They drafted one last year in Devontae Smith. But I don't think they're drafting linebackers yet.
Well, we don't have to sweat top 10 this year. Top 15, yes, because that's where their first pick sits. Now 15 and 18 after yesterday's trade. with the Saints. All right, let's take our final time out of the day. Come back. Maybe we'll get Ben Solak later in the week. Don't know what happened.
Man, I'm getting swatted every day this week, Jetty.
And you got Clay Harbor
Clay's coming back though.
Rescheduled.
Clay's going to be here Friday. Cross your fingers.
Write that one down. McMullen said Clay Harbor Friday. We'll see if that happens. We didn't get a hold of Ben Solak, so we'll come back, put a bow on the show here on Birds 360.